Without any further ado, she has a depth of knowledge she's very keen to share. Please welcome Gina Cook.
All right, thanks Kevin. I'm actually really pleased to be here today. I was saying to Peter yesterday, this is actually my third attempt to get in front of you guys. We had one planned for earlier in the year, and then obviously COVID hit, and so we ended up doing a pre-recorded session, and obviously the one that was supposed to happen last month didn't quite happen, but I'm here today, so it's really exciting. All right, to set the scene, we just want to start with a bit of a thought for the day. So when everything seems to be going against you, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. From one of my favourite people who puts out some really good quotes, or did put out some really good quotes, Henry Ford. I like a lot of his sayings. So there's no doubt that we're actually in unprecedented times. The past 6 months have seen obviously some very turbulent or rough times for a lot of businesses. Certainly over the course of my career, I have not seen anything like this, and I've been doing it for over 20 years. Even the GFC was nothing on this. There's still likely to be some quite tough times still to come. Unfortunately, I don't think this is the worst of it. We've still got wage subsidies that are due to come off, loan deferral schemes that are still in play. So this next 6-month period, I think, is going to be really rough for a lot of businesses. So even if your business has actually been all right up until now, I think you're going to see a bit more impact if you haven't already. The expectation is, if you've been listening to any of the economists, that the unemployment rate is actually going to get up to about 9 or 10%, and I think we're currently still sitting at about the 5 or 6% level. So that's probably going to be the impact of that wage subsidy has been keeping everyone up, but this next 6-month period is going to be really telling. But in New Zealand, I think we do actually have a really good advantage. You know, we are a country of SMEs, and being SMEs, you know, we are small, we're agile, you know, we can adapt a lot quicker than perhaps larger businesses. And of course we have that number 8 mentality, number 8 wire mentality, which means, you know, we really need to be engaging if we're going to get ourselves through this. Before we get stuck in, I have to do the obligatory accountant disclaimer and just say, look, I'm not an insolvency expert, so you know, if your business is in any way, shape or form getting close to a position where you might be insolvent, I thoroughly recommend that you do go and speak to an insolvency specialist. What we're going to go through today is very much focused on those businesses that are not insolvent, okay? So just general disclaimer. What I do want to cover with you today is, as Kevin mentioned, is take you through a process of what you can be doing with your business to plan for the turbulent times ahead. We'll walk through a bit of a structured approach to business recovery planning. This is what we're currently doing with a lot of our businesses, a lot of our clients. It has been developed specifically for COVID or coming out of COVID, but it will have obviously equal application to different events in the future that might have a similar impact. So from that perspective, it is new, but it's a version or a recreation of what we already do with our clients. So it's not business planning, it's not strategic planning, it's kind of a subset of all of that, where, and if I can compare and contrast, you know, what business recovery planning is, it is very much going deeper into the detail and actually looking at the key areas of your business, and we look at things from 10 key areas. So it is very much short focused. We're not looking out for a year, we're not looking out for 2 or 3 years. We're looking at what you can do within the next sort of 90 days out to a year, so keep that in mind. So the outcome of this process is obviously a plan for the coming period, and with a particular focus on action points that you can do within the next 90 days. So we'll be covering these key areas. So I'm going to take you through the need to reinvent. We'll then look at budgeting, so that's a personal budget as well as a business budget. Opportunities, vulnerabilities and critical challenges. a framework for identifying and managing risks, and then looking at goals and actions to come out of that, and then pulling everything together as a complete package. We'll also have plenty of time for questions, because my presentation, I said to Peter, I think it's probably a little on the shorter side. I didn't want to absolutely bamboozle you all with technical jargon. And in the past, when I've presented on anything that's too heavily accounting, people just kind of yawn and fall asleep. So we're going to keep it reasonably short and snappy. So if you've got questions, feel free to interject, and we can take them throughout, or you can just save them for the end. So the first thing I want to reinforce, which is really critical, is that you do engage with your advisors if you haven't already. Everyone is in the same boat to varying degrees, including us. You know, we've had to go through this ourselves as a CA firm. You know, and unless you're a supermarket or supplying PPE or hand sanitizer, I think you've probably felt the impact, you know, of COVID the way the rest of us has. So, as I say, now is the time to be connecting with all your advisors. So, you know, your accountants, your lawyers, your bankers, your insurance brokers, everyone that gets around that table and helps you in your business. The best plans are usually always made with input from different areas. I find a lot of my clients in particular are they know their business inside and out, but it tends to mean that you can have some blinkers or some blinders, and you don't know what you don't know. And so when you're talking to various other advisors, they will often look at something from a completely different perspective, something that you haven't thought of. So the other challenge, I think, for that is obviously now is a time where everyone is looking at cost and being conscious of their costs, and obviously seeking advice does have a cost to it. So, but I would challenge that to say, like, not seeking the right advice is probably going to be even more costly in the long run. If you're not already aware, the government has pushed out a lot of funding for businesses, specifically around COVID advisory. In Auckland, that's being managed by ATEED. So if you haven't registered with ATEED, you should do so, and they may be able to help you out with some funding. So during times of adversity, we're often forced to think outside the square, to reinvent the way that we work or behave. So we see 4 main areas that you can do this. Obviously there, you can innovate, you can re-engineer, you can adapt, and you can widen your lane. So we're going to take a closer look at all of those. I'm going to give you some examples of some from our client base and some from others that you're probably already aware of, people out in the community and what they've done differently. So the first opportunity is to innovate. And I'm actually going to read this to make sure I get it right. The Oxford Dictionary defines innovation as the introduction of new things, ideas, or ways of doing something. So I've got a couple of examples for this. One really good one, you may have seen it on, I'm pretty sure it was on 7 Sharp or one of those. It was definitely in the Herald, but there was a couple of entrepreneurs down in the Bay of Plenty who were selling travel pillows. And obviously the travel market kind of fell away with COVID-19. So they challenged themselves to think, well, what else can we do? And within about a 48-hour period, they changed to selling and stocking hair clippers. Now, they looked at this opportunity and thought, well, we can't go to the hairdresser in level 4 lockdown, and a lot of their friends were complaining about not being able to go to the hairdresser, so that was an area that they thought that they could get into, and they did. It was a bit of a jump for them to do it, but within a week they were having, I think, 200 orders a day of their hair clippers. So just a good example of innovating and just doing something a little bit different. Another example, and this one I still can't kind of fathom or get my head around it, but the amount of clothing retailers that have got on the fashion mask bandwagon. You've probably already bought one yourself. Classic example, Anna Stretton, she had to close her website because she had way too many orders. So if you'd asked me 6 months ago that I would be searching around on websites for a fashion mask, I would have laughed, but look, here we are. So in this sense, innovation, it's just doing something a little bit different. Okay, so an example for you might be introducing a new service line or product. So the second way is to re-engineer. Now, the Cambridge Dictionary defines re-engineer as to change and improve the design of a product or system. So in other words, you take what you've already got and you produce something completely different. A really great example of this, and you probably would have seen it, is the Good George Brewery down in the Waikato. They looked at what they had, and they had a couple of distilleries which they were doing, they were making whiskey, I think, and they thought, well, what else could we do? And they decided that they would do hand sanitizer. And so they completely changed and used what they had, their distillery, started making hand sanitizer. Now, at least initially it was a social enterprise, so they weren't looking to make a profit from it, but they're still selling it now on their website. I checked, it's still there, and they've actually managed to find a way to attach it to their existing core business. So I saw on their website, you can, if you buy 6 squealers, now I'm not quite sure what a squealer is, but if you buy 6 squealers, you get a free bottle of hand sanitizer, so quite nifty there.
Whiskey flavoured.
Whiskey flavoured. And another example is, the Formula One teams who took on the NHS Challenge in the UK to make the ventilators. So another idea there. So the third way to reinvent your business is to adapt or to change the way you deliver your products or services. So when we look at a biological definition of adaptation, it's the process by which a species becomes fitted to its environment. So in other words, if we look at our new normal or our new environment that we find ourselves in, how can we change to suit that new environment? So a couple of examples here. One which I wasn't actually aware of, someone else told me about, is a local beauty therapy business that emailed their client base offering free online skin consultation if they bought a product. So obviously, with everything shut, they couldn't actually do face-to-face beauty therapy. So they found a way with bundling of new products to actually still offer some sort of service to their customers. Another example is actually one of my own clients. Not sure if you would be aware, there's a new cinema in Ouraki called Silky Otter. And cinemas obviously completely shut over level 4, but when level 3 came in, we had the rule around you could have 10 people in one place. And luckily for them, their little cinemas, they're only built on a 50 seat. There's 2 cinemas for 50 people in each cinema. So they came up with the great idea of, they blocked out those times and they packaged it up and said, you can hire our cinema for $150 for 10 people, free popcorn. You can watch either one of our backlog of movies or you can play PlayStation, you can do what you like. And they were completely booked solid right through to the end of level 3. So just another example of changing and thinking a little bit differently, adapting your environment or your business to the current environment and doing something a little bit different. So obviously we can innovate, we can re-engineer, we can adapt our business, and the final one is to widen your lane. So what we mean by that is offering a wider range of products or services than you did previously. So a good example here, I don't know if any of you know who Cupcake Gemma is. I'm a keen baker, so I love Cupcake Gemma. So she's based in the UK. And she has a shop called Crumbs and Doilies. And obviously they weren't able to operate during lockdown, but they found a way to, what they did is they actually packaged up all of their goodies, or the nice things that people like to buy. They put them into pre-packaged parcels, I guess you call them, with the recipes. And you could just jump on her website, buy them, and you can make them at home. So another way to actually look at, and that has become, like they open up again, but they're still offering that. It's just another way of offering what they do. So with these 4 ideas in mind, so innovation, re-engineering, adaptation, or broadening your offering, my challenge to you is what more could you be doing in your business? So that's what business recovery planning is all about. It's challenging you to look at your business and just say, what can we be doing differently? Because the world has changed and we need to change with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep dive into the 10 different areas that we look at when we do a business recovery planning session. So there is a natural order to how we reinvent our business, and with business continuity planning, which is what we were doing with a lot of our clients over the first level 4 lockdown, that was more about making sure that your business just had everything it needed to survive at that time. The key thing we said to our clients was, put your oxygen mask on first. You know, you're no use to anyone else if you're not alive or if you're in ICU. So from a business context, it's the same thing. You need to make sure that you as a business owner are looking after yourself. Your business is there to support you, not the other way around. So step 1 is putting our shareholder hat on, or our owner hat, and looking at our own personal budget. We need to know, as an owner, what do we need our business to generate so that we can actually survive. This is a really funny one. Whenever I ask any of my clients this question, they don't know. And it sometimes becomes a bit of a challenge to them when I tell them how much they are actually drawing from the business. So I don't know if you find that with your businesses either, but what we call drawings and what we define as drawings, sometimes the business might be paying for things on your behalf, such as insurance policies or something that is not, you know, you're not feeling the physical cash impact, but it is actually a drawing and it is something that you do need the business to continue to pay for you. So it's really pivotal to actually understand, what is that number? What is the lowest number you need as an owner to continue and survive? Okay, so the first step is making a personal budget. So if you haven't already done so, it's pretty easy to do. You can just pull your bank statements for the past 3 or so months. Make sure you've picked up all of your expenses. We just have a simple Excel spreadsheet template, but you can do it any way you like. Most people would use a spreadsheet. No doubt you would have made a few savings through lockdowns. If you're anything like me, I challenged myself with making my own lunch. I think the good thing about lockdown, if there was a good thing, is they say it takes 21 days to make a habit. So I had at least 21 days of making my own lunch, and it seems to have formed into a habit. So for me, personally, I'm saving at least $75 a week from going and buying my lunch. So I'm sure you would have made a few savings in different areas, which you could potentially continue on.
The only thing with the habit, we also have drinking habits.
Yeah. Yeah, that. And I personally also developed a bit of an online spending habit, yeah. But yeah, so this is step 1, putting together your personal budget. And then once you've done that, obviously you need to be really realistic as well. So don't necessarily take the period that you were in lockdown, because there would have been, we obviously had different spending habits over that time, clearly. So you do need to be realistic, you know, for now, going forward, what is your spending budget likely to look like? So once you've established what you need as an owner from your business, so your personal budget, we start building on the revised business budget. So I'm sure as a business owner, you have probably been through various iterations of your business budget already. But I think this is an area that we need to continually work on a lot more regularly than we possibly would have done in the past. There are so many moving parts at the moment, it's really critical. So we recommend a process called a bottom-up process. A lot of people actually go from a top-down. They start with their sales and actually go, well, this is my sales, these are my costs, therefore this is my profit at the end, and that's what I'll just have to be happy with. Well, we approach it a different way, or we recommend that we approach it from a different way. And so we start with a bottom-up approach, and we say how much, if we were to look at this, say, on a monthly basis, how much additional cash do we need this month to survive, or how much cash do we want? So we might want to set a bit of a challenge for ourselves. You know, we obviously break even would be nice, but let's just say we want an extra $20,000 cash this month. So we start with that figure. We then look at other cash movements. So this is where, at the moment, we're looking at everything that's what we call a balance sheet item. So your other cash movements comes from things like debtors and creditors. So did you go into this period, or are you carrying more debtors than you probably should have? So can you release a bit more cash from following up your debtors and actually getting your debtor cycle a bit better? Have you maximised from your accounts payable side? Have you maximised any prompt payment discounts? Have you negotiated better terms with your suppliers? And stock is probably the key one for a lot of people. Some people, you know, overstock their shelves if you're in a retail environment. We challenge our clients to actually look at the level of stock that they're carrying, because that's just cash sitting there. Obviously, loan principal repayments, or loans that you're going to draw. So you can obviously, if you're planning to draw down on funds from the bank during this period, that's obviously money in. But you also need to factor in money that needs to go out. So if you have taken out some new loans, you need to factor in the payments that you're going to need to go out. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong keys here. Likewise, asset purchases. So we actually had quite a lot of our clients have to go out and fit out their employees with new, not necessarily new computers, but screens, keyboards and everything for working from home. Likewise, you might have a whole lot of excess assets that you don't really need, so you could free up a bit of cash from those excess assets and sell them. Drawings, as I mentioned before, I think this is an area that a lot of businesses get confused. What is drawings? So we're not talking about what's included in wages. So if you're on a PAYE salary, don't worry about that, that's taken care of in wages. So your drawings is purely what you're taking in addition to your wages and salaries as physical cash drawings. So as I said before, these are all the balance sheet items. So what we look at next is then the P&L side of things. So once we've dealt with all that, we then know what figure we need to have as our net profit after tax. So that's the bare minimum. That's what we need to make as a profit in order to cover all of the cash that we need for all of these other things and still have the extra additional cash at the end of it that we want. Sorry to say, you need to account for tax. So once we're taking tax off, obviously net profit before tax, the next one is overheads. So this is a big area that obviously all of you would have been looking at in quite some detail, is what can you be doing within your overheads to decrease those overheads. And the key one, which I've been challenging a lot of my clients on, is rent in premises. Around, do you actually, you know, if you've got a quite large premise, do you actually need that large premise? And if your lease is actually coming up soon, challenging them to think a little bit differently. Could you actually operate from a slightly smaller premise and work a little bit more from home? So just challenging yourselves to look in different ways of the overheads that you currently have. Can you do things a bit differently? Have you actually reviewed them lately to make sure you're actually getting the best deals on things? Obviously, we need some gross profit. And in order to figure out what our revenue should be, we need to make a certain assumption over what our gross profit percentage is. So at a basic level, you might say, well, on average, my gross profit percentage is 20%. So you kind of do a backwards calculation. So as I've demonstrated, we start at the bottom, we work our way up. You know what that gross profit figure needs to be. So it's just a calculation to say, my average gross profit percentage is Y, so therefore the revenue that I need to be generating this month, this quarter, or this year, whatever basis that you're doing it on, needs to be this figure. So you see the benefit in actually doing it the other way up. It can challenge you to actually think, if I want this result, if I want $20,000 a month cash, what do I need to be doing at the top line in order to generate that? Whereas a lot of people think the other way around. So they're our P&L items. So once you've kind of done this, ideally you would then produce a more comprehensive budget, which probably, or a forecast which actually goes out for a full year at least. So, and this is where having real-time digital reports of your numbers is so important. Just an analogy I use with my team all the time is about having a roadmap. And I say, look, if I've got a new client that I need to go and see, they're way over the other side of the bridge, and you know I need to get my passport out for going the other side of the bridge. I'm very geographically challenged when it comes to going across the bridge. I can look at this two ways. Well, one way I could totally wing it and just say, yeah, I kind of know where I'm going, you know, and I think it will take me this amount of time to get there. Get in my car and go. You know, I'll probably take quite a few wrong turns along the way. I might get there either super late or I might not even arrive at all. Okay. The other option is I could get out Google Maps before I go. I could plot my course. I could say, well, I know where I'm going. This is where I'm going. Google will tell me how long it's going to take for me to get there. I will allow some time for parking. I'll take my GPS with me in my car when I go. I might take a wrong turn, but my GPS will tell me how to get back onto the right path. So using that methodology, I'm more likely to actually get where I need to go on time. So the same is true of your business planning process. So when you're putting together your budgeting and your forecasts, you need to make sure that you're putting systems and reporting in place that you can actually track and measure against that. So as an example, if you've identified that your sales need to be 500,000, it roughly equates to 10,500 per week if you're open for 48 weeks of the year. So this is plotting your course. So you're figuring out, you're breaking it down into chunks. You know what you need to do, you know what you need to achieve. So you'll want to have a system already set up. Hopefully you should all have systems set up to record how you're going against that target. So that's your GPS. So if you're getting off target slightly, your GPS should tell you how to get back on target. So this is where we're using our reporting, we're measuring what we're doing, we have certain criteria that we know we need to meet. If we're not meeting it, we're getting back on track as quickly as possible. So we strongly recommend that you have no more than probably 5 KPIs, so key performance indicators, if you're not aware what that is. Having too many just makes it, you'll spend too much time in reporting and tracking everything through your business. So we do recommend it's 5 key things. So generally for most people, it's going to be probably a sales target. It's probably going to be a gross margin target. To make sure that you're getting the right cash into your business, it's probably going to be a debtor day target. So making sure that you're actually keeping your debtors below a certain, or that the time that it takes to collect your debtors below a certain target. So if you don't have any of this already set up, obviously tap into your advisors and they can help you with it. So once you know at a high level what your budget is, it's now time to actually look at what your opportunities and everything are, what exists within your business to try and actually meet that budget. Again, we recommend that you don't focus on more than 5 key areas. So think of what we talked about before in the ways of reinventing your business. Opportunities could also be things like working in more of an online way, I know I work with quite a lot of pharmacies who I've been challenging for quite some years to get online. And some of them did, some of them didn't, and the ones that did obviously fared much better throughout COVID. So you might also need to redefine some of your roles within your business, so there might be opportunities there. As I mentioned before, there could be opportunities around downsizing or changing the way that you're working. So there will be plenty of opportunities within your businesses. So take the time to brainstorm, and this is often often better done with your whole team. So the more people you have that actually work in your organisation, the more ideas you're likely to get. Of course, looking at the other side from opportunities is your vulnerabilities. So I don't know if any of you have ever done SWOT analysis, which is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So it's kind of similar. So the opportunities, we've called it vulnerabilities, but it's pretty much, you know, your threats side of things. So again, try and look at probably no more than 5, concentrate on 5. And these could be things like poor cash flow, if your sales have taken a bit of a hit, you know, over this period, looking at, is that likely to continue in the future? Is that a threat, you know, going forward, or is it likely to get back to where it was before? And you do need to be brutally honest. Don't have rose-tinted glasses, especially if you're dealing with banks. The last thing they want is a very rosy picture, and then when you come to report in, you didn't quite meet it, and it's just the worst place to be. So once you've identified your 5 biggest opportunities and your 5 vulnerabilities, we then recommend you look at probably 2 to 3 of your most critical challenges. And this could be things like, for a lot of businesses, I'd say cash flow is probably going to be one of their critical challenges. You could have a product line or a service that has literally dropped out, and you don't see any prospect of that correcting itself in the future. So you may need to look to actually cut a particular part of your business or liquidate out a particular part of your business. So the other thing, part of the process that we go through, and this is actually, I quite like this one. I find this is an area that a lot of businesses don't do, and they get a lot of value out of going through this particular exercise. And that's going through and identifying what are the key risks in your business, and we do it from the 10 particular areas of the business that we focus on. Key is starting at the top, the governance aspect. So what kind of risks do you have around governance? That could be things like poor planning. Maybe there are no directors meetings happening. Maybe there's no management reporting happening up to the governance. Might have poor discipline around working on the business. Maybe the owner is too busy working in it that they don't actually have enough time to pull themselves out and look at the business and work on it. Leadership, again, risks around communication, reporting and team morale. I think team morale was a really big one over this whole lockdown period, keeping everyone's morale up. Products and services, again, risks around products and services that you might not be able to offer. What is the risk to your business of that not continuing? What do you have to do? What do you have to reinvent? What do you have to adapt? Operationally, risks around suppliers, your supply chain. If you're having any of your product imported from China, you probably would have felt this quite keenly in those first few months. But again, what's happening with your customers? So what's happening in their businesses that could be a risk to your business? Marketing. Risks could include poor return on investment or overspending in particular areas. Maybe you're not getting the best bang for your buck in marketing. Also, maybe a lack of a digital presence. As I said, you know, some of my clients didn't have that online avenue for selling their services. So, you know, is that still a risk for you? Sales, obviously the need to adapt, you know, so going to that e-commerce type platform. Online selling, risks around poor training, overselling. Finance, were you undercapitalised during going into lockdown? That's probably the key thing we found with a lot of really small businesses, is they tend to live hand to foot or hand to mouth, so to speak, where the business bank account is almost seen as an extension of the owner's business bank account. And what that basically meant is there really was not a lot of extra cash sitting in the business to actually help them through that period. Lack of sufficient cash flow, poor financing structure, etc., etc. Obviously HR, do you have risks around needing to restructure? Grievances, if you've dealt with things in an incorrect way. And then administration side of things as well, which is, do you have maybe a lack of automation within your business that could be shored up? So those are just some examples, and those are the 10 key areas that we look at. Oh, no, actually I've got one more, technology. So a risk around this might be poor adaptation of software or apps. So are you actually using all of the technology that's available to you to be as efficient as you possibly can be? So just as that looks like, the matrix that we use, again, it's an Excel spreadsheet, but we ask you to rank things in all these 10 key areas. And we say, what are the key risks for your business in each of these 10 areas? And then we ask you to rate it based on likelihood and also how significant is that risk to your business. So obviously something that's almost certain to happen and will have a significant impact on your business, that's a 5 plus a 5, so that gets a scoring of 25. So that's why it's red. So that's a key critical factor for your business. It's a key risk that you must look at. Now obviously something that's got a remote likelihood of happening and it's relatively inconsequential is going to get a really low rating. So once you've identified all your risks, we need to pull everything together into a comprehensive plan with goals, actions and responsibilities. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, your business recovery plan is a lot more detailed than a business plan or a business strategy. It is focused on what you can do in the next 90 days. And so it does require that you have short-term goals, which are broken down into action points, and we also assign responsibilities and timeframes to them. So this is that good old acronym, the SMART goals. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So we do need to make sure that we are assigning SMART goals. During this period, we recommend that you actually review this probably on a monthly basis because things can change really quick. So how do we pull this together as a complete package? So depending on your circumstances, your package could look quite different. There will be certain things that maybe your business doesn't need that another business might need. But at the very basic level, you should have obviously a personal budget and a business budget. You should have a business register, and then that all forms your business recovery plan. Those, I think, are the key ones that you need to make sure you have. Now, if you're going for financing with a bank, then it's also good to have a business forecast and a finance application all ready to go as well. So I thought I'd just walk you through what we're doing with some of our clients and what the result of going through this process and what it looks like. So when we do this process, it's actually quite intensive. There's quite a lot of pre-work, so it's not an easy ride. We do have to do some thinking, and actually that reminds me of another quote. I'm probably going to butcher this. It's another Henry Ford one. Thinking is one of the hardest things we do, which is probably why people don't do it. So the premise, it starts with a bit of a questionnaire. So we send that out to you, and you have to do, it's probably at least 2 to 3 hours worth of work in going through the key areas of your business. So you're going to do your personal cash flow, you're going to do your business budget, you're going to look at your risk register, you're going to put your risk register together. So if you haven't already done that, that could take a little bit longer. You're going to then answer a whole lot of questions for each of the 10 key areas. And those questions are designed to get you thinking about what the risks are, what are your opportunities, what are your vulnerabilities in all of these key areas. That then gets sent through to us. We take that information and we review it, and we pull out what we think is the key information, and we put it into a plan format. So what I'm about to take you through is what the plan kind of looks like and what it could look like for you. You could do your own version of this. Okay, so at the top level, like you usually do your executive summary last. So the executive summary is only supposed to be a couple of sentences around how your business has fared over this particular period of time. So you'll see there that we've got details about our monthly personal spending. So how much does the owner need? How much do they need on an annual basis? What's their role? What hours of work do they need to do? Do they need to work? It also does ask for 3 years in the future, because that, in a way, it gets the owner thinking, well, this is what I'm doing now, but what do I actually want? Where do I want to be in 3 years' time? So while the business recovery plan is not designed to be a plan for 3 years in the future, we ask that question more for the owners to actually just start thinking about, well, what do they actually want to be doing? We also detail, if there's any new loans that you need or any new financing, what those would be. We then start bringing in the details of your business budget. So this is where we've got our gross revenue, gross profit, etc., all the way down to the increase or decrease in cash. And this is where we then pull in our critical KPIs that we need to achieve. So as I mentioned before, the usual ones we see are like debtor days, stock days, gross profit margin, the minimum level of weekly sales. And a nice one in there, board meetings held monthly, if that's not currently happening. So that might be one that's actually getting to your governance. We also detail, obviously, the key opportunities that you've identified through the whole process, and also your vulnerabilities and the most critical challenges. Now, if you haven't identified what you think the most critical challenges are, that's where we come in, and we just say, well, based on all the information in here and what we can see, this is what we would consider your key critical challenges are. So we would then host a 4-hour workshop where we sit down with you and we go through all of this. And we test you, we ask lots of questions, and I say, look, this is not rocket science. It's a simple process. The value in going through this is the thinking. It gets you thinking. And also, if you go through a facilitated session, it's just having someone external to you asking the right questions and making sure that you're actually looking at everything. So part of this plan, what I mentioned before, is when we look at the risk register, we are asking you to go through every level, or all those 10 key areas in your business, and identifying your risks. So this is what it kind of looks like. So as you can see there, we've identified some risks around our governance. We've set an annual goal. We've then set a 90-day goal. So what are we actually wanting to focus on in the next 90 days? We then set our 90-day actions. Who's going to do it and by when? So really simple stuff, but most people aren't doing it. So that's just showing the whole thing. So your next step. So hopefully I haven't bamboozled you with a whole lot of accounting speak. The goal here was just to highlight to you that there's actually a very simple process that you can take your business through. But it's all about having the right structure and actually putting the time aside to do it, because that's where a lot of people fall down. So what are your next steps? I would say to you that doing nothing is not an option. Unfortunately, in years gone by, you do nothing, you could pretty much expect the same result next year. I don't think that's going to be the case going forward. So doing nothing, you are likely to actually start going backwards or not have a business at all. Again, put your oxygen mask on first. Critical that you look after yourself as the business owner and make sure that you can actually survive first, because if you don't survive, your business won't survive. Obviously, make a plan. This is critical. I think you focus on what you can do. I think a lot of people are trying to focus or trying to predict what's actually going to happen in the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. Like, no one knows. You could spend a lot of time and waste a lot of energy in trying to predict what that is. So focus on what you can do right here, right now, in the next 90 days, and get help from your advisors. So how can we help you? So obviously, we're recommending to a lot of our clients that they do go through a process. It doesn't have to be with us, but that they do go through a process of putting together a business recovery plan. We've been getting some really good feedback, just more, as I say, the value is not in the written words on a page. It's not in the questionnaire. It's in the process and the thinking that goes behind it. It brings to the front for you as a business owner the things that perhaps you have just been putting your head in the sand and not wanting to acknowledge. So it brings everything more visible so that you can actually deal with it. So following the session today, Peter or his team will send to you an email which just has a link on it for you which will go through to our website. It's a hidden page, so only you can see it, only you can access it, and you will be able to download an action checklist which will just go through the 10 areas of the business and some key questions. Now you can use that just a complete DIY as a guideline for you to go through this type of process with your business. So that's completely free. You don't need to give your details or anything, you just go and download it. There are 2 things that I'm offering to you here today. So if you download that checklist, that action checklist, and you go through and you start putting it together for your business, if you would like me to run through it with you or offer some feedback, I'm offering a complimentary 15-hour phone call. So if you wanted that, you can just put your details down and ask me to contact you. The other thing is obviously, if you were interested in a full business recovery planning session, we can do that for you too. So you can book a free consultation to discuss. So. And again, just reiterating that ATI does have COVID funding, so you may qualify for funding if you haven't already accessed that funding. And they're offering, I think it's up to $5,000 at the moment for COVID, specifically related to COVID advisory. So I like going through quotes, I like looking at them. Just when a caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly. So just remember, look, we're going through a bit of shit at the moment, but if you do the right things in your businesses, you should come out the other side, and hopefully in a better shape.
Thank you.